Okay, to tonight's annual general meeting, annual members meeting of the Dons Trust, the Wimbledon Football Club Supporters Society Limited. Thanks to those who are in the room, and hello to those who are joining us online. You are all, of course, very welcome indeed. So this evening, we do have an awful lot to get through, hence we've started on time. We have an awful lot of votes. We have election results. We have the accounts, and we have an opportunity to ask questions and make comments and so on. So those are the things we're going to be covering. Once we've finished, then the AFCW PLC AGM will happen straight afterwards. So we're also going to introduce the new board members who've been elected once we have the formal announcement of the election results a little bit later. So some people have sent in proxy votes in advance, so we have those, of course. Then we have people in the room who will, of course, be voting. You do have voting cards. Your voting card for this meeting is this yellow. No, it's not. Oh, we don't. It's the blue. Is it? Yeah, you chose that. I said blue, didn't I? Yeah, well, sorry. Your voting card for this meeting is the blue one. Sorry. Blue one. And if you're staying later for the AFCW PLC meeting, then there's another card, but we won't talk about that so as not to confuse anybody, mainly me. And then, of course, those who are joining us online will also be voting via Zoom poll. So I'm just checking with my colleague to see if there is a test Zoom poll that's waiting for them to, not just yet. Okay, so we've got a few apologies that I've been asked to make. Ivor Heller asked me to pass on his apologies for this evening. He's unable to make it. One of the new board members, recently elected Kevin Rye, could get here but wouldn't have been able to get home because of the situation with the trains, so he's not with us tonight. Graham Stacey, one of the outgoing board members, has a poorly son, unfortunately, that he needs to be looking after tonight. So he isn't able to join us either. Are there any others? Freddie won't be joining. Freddie Flintstone. Fred Flintstone, I was going to call him. I mean, that would be good, wouldn't it? If you had Freddie Flintstone on the board, it would be funny at least, wouldn't it? Freddie Flaxman won't be joining us from the west coast of the US. Not in person, at least. Okay, how are we getting on with that test Zoom poll? So what's the question? Okay, so the question, the Zoom poll question, but we'll get you to vote on this in the room as well, because it's really important. Who scored the best goal this season so far? Actually, no, who scored the best goal this season right up to the end of the season? And the two options, because we've only managed to get two options, number one option is Ayub Asal, and number two option is Ethan Chislett. So, all those who think, so we've got the Zoom poll live, have we? So those who are logged in online are voting at the moment. It'll be very exciting to see the results. And then we're going to take a vote in the room as well. We do have tellers in the room. So Graham and Mark, where are you? There you are, Mark. If you wouldn't mind counting in the room for us, please. All those who think that Ayub Asal has scored or will score the greatest goal ever in the history of the world this season, please show. Mark and Graham, you let me know when the counting's been done. Okay. And all those think that Ethan Chislett will or has scored the best goal in the season. Mark, don't count James's vote because it's the wrong colour card. What's that you're indicating in front of me? Thank you very much. What are the scores in the room, Mark? 12, that's tight, isn't it? That is tight. What about online? That Ayub Asal wins it 61%, I think is what you said. Sorry? Ayub Asal? Ethan Chislett wins it 61% with it equal in the room. So well done, everybody. Thanks for that. But that's just to get people used to the online voting mechanism. So we now move to the business of the evening. So the first things we need to do are to put in front of you the couple of sets of minutes, because last time we had to apologise for not having a set of minutes for you. So a couple of sets of minutes. There are minutes of the SGM on the 25th of May and minutes of the SGM on the 13th of October. So paper 1 and paper 2. These all went out with the with the packs to everybody on online by email and via post. That's what they call it, isn't it? To those who receive things by post. So first vote, first live vote of the evening is to approve, please, the minutes of the SGM of the 25th of May 2022. So everything okay? No. Inquiries at okay. So can we have approval of the minutes? Thank you. Anybody got any issues with those minutes?
Keep them up.
Was it?
Have they got the number?
It doesn't matter. Thank you. Any issues? Anyone wanting to vote against adopting those or abstaining on it? No, thank you very much. And then are we good online? Cool. You give me a nod when I can move on. Can we move on?
Ian Pollock has asked if the chairman would remind proxy voters not to vote a second time.
I can ask proxy voters not to vote a second time, but they might like to. And I don't know that I can really stop them. So we have a mechanism for checking votes after the meeting, which is that Martin Newton, Secretary, runs through all of those proxy votes, all of the votes, all of the people who've come to the meeting, and all of the votes from online to check that nobody's accidentally voted more than once. But yes, if you didn't intend to vote twice, it's better if you don't, because then Martin doesn't have to cross you off the list. Makes it a lot easier. So thanks for the nudge, Ian. So minutes of the SGM on 13th of October 2022. Can we go with that one? Yep. Okay. So all those in favour of adopting those? Thank you very much. Anyone want to vote against that or abstain? Super. Thank you very much. So we just need to wait a moment or two for the those who are online to register their votes. Meanwhile, I'll ask David to come up, grab a mic, and give us the skinny on this year's election.
Thanks, Chris. Right, so my name is David Hall, for those of you who don't know me, and I was secretary between 2012-15 and did the election several times then when John Dolan was in charge. and came in a couple of years ago to help out doing the election then with Alex Folks, who wasn't able to do it this year. So I've had an extended role this year, doing an awful lot more than I expected to. Anyway, the election went forward as per the usual process. We sent out all the nomination details. Sent out the nomination details at the beginning of September with the new rules. We had an election steering group, myself, Julian Edwards, Matt Breach, and George Jones, plus Neil Springate, who's the independent scrutineer, with the support of Martin as well as secretary. Those all went out, and we got 13 nominations in by the deadline. I have to say, 12 of them, 2 of them came in on the Friday night and 10 came through on the Saturday. So it may be a good decision in future to perhaps have the deadline not on a match day, I think. So, anyway, something I might be including in the report. Yeah, we got 10 through on the final day. And there were 7 vacancies, 5 for 2-year terms and 2 for 1-year terms. And then the election process started. There were a number of issues this year. I'm not going to go through all the detail of that. We will, as usual, be presenting a report to the Dons Trust Board with more detail on that for them to consider, and then that will be published in appropriate form at some stage. And we'll go through the issues then. But there were obviously a number of things this year with the additional vacancies, the hustings. I'm happy to take questions on those, but as I said, you've got a number of other items on the agenda tonight. We were using a new tool. We were using Smart Survey, which it created some issues on limits on reminders. But yeah, there was a lot of extra work involved this year than expected. In terms of the candidates, we had 13 white men standing. Won't make any observation for that on that. I mean, I think that's up to you guys and women to make a decision on how you feel about that. But obviously we have had women stand in the past. We've got Hannah and Michelle. So it's something perhaps for you to ponder on. In terms of the results then, so we concluded the election on the 3rd of December at midnight. The vast majority, as ever, through electronic poll. We do still have some paper votes. We're trying to reduce them because they are expensive. It cost almost £20 per head for the paper votes this year. For those who actually were sent the ballots, for those who voted, it was even more expensive. So we actually only got 19 paper votes back, but you can see the vast majority were electronic. And those were the results there. Those were published on December the 4th. So hopefully none of that's a surprise to any of you there. It was on the Dons Trust site and on Poll Boards the following day. So we're happy to announce that Matt Lowndes, James McDonald, Graham Price, Kevin Wright and Mark Lewis, in that order, were the 5 candidates who received the most votes and therefore have the 2-year terms. And Chris Phillips and Richard Shepherd were the next, came in 6th and 7th, and therefore had the 1-year terms. So hopefully that's all clear. There was 11 spoil ballots this year, which is slightly more than usual. That's partly because we included on the electronic survey an open-ended form, so you could actually put more than 7 if you wanted to in the way we would with a paper ballot, and some people did. And some people didn't vote at all, or chose not to submit any. So we, had a few more sport ballots. Again, we will make an issue of this in the Dons Trust report as whether that is worth doing in the future. The total electorate was slightly less than last year. It was 33,440, and the voters were 1218. So that's 35.4%, which is slightly down on last year, which was about 38%. But still very good. I think back in 2019, and the year before I got involved, it was only 30%. So the last 3 years, we've actually more than achieved that. So I'm quite pleased with that outcome, given particularly we're using a new survey tool. So I've got another couple of slides which might be of interest to you. Some people ask about the voting patterns, and I've tried to do this over the last few years just to give an idea. And this is over time, shows you the votes of about the 1,200 electronic voters. And the pattern emerges quite soon, about 300 and 400 votes. You can see the top 7 actually continue to, well, you can't see. Maybe you can see it online, can't see it here. But yeah, the top 7 voters, so 7 candidates started to develop a gap between the 8 candidates quite early on, and that pattern continued. So there's no unusual patterns I can see in that at all, frankly. But I think I just published it for interest, just so you've got that information. And then the next slide shows the voting over time. If we can have the next one, please. So I compared it with 2021. Now we sent out 4 reminders over the last 2 years. In last year, we sent one out the following weekend on the Saturday. So you can see that blue line going up there, and there was quite a gap there, which was concerning me for a bit, that there wasn't a good turnout. But that was partly due to some limitations on Smart Survey, which Chris helpfully resolved with Smart Survey. And we were able to send out 4 reminders. It's just that the first reminder went out a little bit later than usual. So you'll see we virtually caught up in the end. The only reason we didn't get to 38% really was because we did it over 22 days, not 23 days. So we might have got to 38% turnout otherwise. But that's about it. I'm obviously happy to take questions, but otherwise that's the report of the ESG for the AGM this year. Any questions?
Are there any questions? Are there any questions for David? Doesn't look like it. That's great. Thanks. David, thank you ever so much. David's done, I think, 7 of the last 11 elections. And obviously, as he said, some years are tougher than others, and this year's been an awful lot of hard work for you, and unexpectedly in some respects as well. So thank you very much for all your hard work, and do please pass on everybody's thanks to the rest of the ESG as well, which I have done from the board as well. Thanks very much. Brilliant. Super stuff. So you heard the names there, and saw the names as well of those who were successfully elected. And some of those are with us tonight, not all of them, but let's have a look around the room and I will find them. So Richard is here, Richard Shepherd, Matt Lowndes, James McDonald, and then my eyesight kind of fails me. We've got Mark Lewis at the back. I think that's you there, isn't it? And then Graham Price we have at the back as well. I think that's you there. And I think that's everybody who's with us tonight. So Kevin and I think Chris are not able to join us tonight. So thanks very much to all of those. Welcome. And their term starts as we finish the meeting. So as soon as we finish the meeting, they are formally and inducted into the board, and it will all be their fault from then on. And it's probably the right time as well to say thank you to those departing board members. Some of those are here with us tonight. So Luke McKenzie's there at the back. Niall Cooper is there at the back. I don't think any of the other sorry, yeah, there you are. You're not in the meeting, you don't count. I can't see. So Charlie Talbot, Hannah Kitcher, and as well as them, we have, as I said, Graham Stacey, who's not able to be with us tonight, and also Anne-Marie Godfrey, who is also not able to be with us tonight. So thanks from me and from the board and from the Dons Trust for all of your hard work over the years. And indeed, thanks for your ongoing hard work tonight as well. Vote counting, looking after the online people, and Charlie making sure that that you can hear us and that all people at home can hear us as well. So that's good stuff. So we move on now to the annual report and accounts. So we have the Society's annual report and accounts, which are in the papers which came out to you. That is paper 3, which people will have hopefully had a good chance to have a look through. So if anybody does want to ask any questions about the Society's accounts, you're very welcome. Otherwise, I think we'll move straight to a vote. Yes, we will. So resolution 3 to approve the Society's annual report and accounts for the year ended the 30th of June 2022. So if I could see in the room, please, all those in favour. And any against? And any abstentions in the room? Super, thank you very much. So we'll just give the online community a minute to finish voting. Okay, and we can move on. Thanks very much. So that's clearly passed. We don't have official votes until after the meeting, obviously. So next one is resolution 4, which is to reappoint BDO LLP as auditors of the Society for the year to the 30th of June 2023. Does anybody have anything they would like to say about that? Or shall we move straight to a vote? Let's move straight to a... Oh, James. Wait for the microphone, please.
Can I just ask how long BDO have been our auditors for?
I don't know.
We don't know. Quite a while.
Do we need to go out to?
So I think not that long ago, we looked at it and we did a rotation of the audit partner so that the team in charge was changed. But we haven't gone out to a formal tender. So I think probably it's a good idea. It's a lot of work to change auditors, but it is best practice either every 5 or 10 years to go through that process. So I can talk to Laurie, our new financial controller of the club, Laurie Hill, who's here tonight. We can definitely look at that for the next cycle after and go out to formal tender. I think that'd be a good idea.
Thank you. If there's nothing else on that, then can we move to a vote? All those in favour of resolution 4 to reappoint BDO LLP as auditors of the Society for the year to the 30th of June 2023. Thank you. Anyone voting against? One vote against in the room, and any abstentions in the room? No abstentions in the room. Okay, let's again just give 30 seconds or so for the online community to finish voting. Excellent, thanks. Thanks everyone. So we're now going to move on to the resolutions. We have quite a few of them. So there is initially a background paper, which I think you will have received the background to the changes. And it just says background, does it? That's okay, cool. Sorry. So as you know, a couple of months ago, we sent out a lot of thoughts and intentions in advance of the SGM, which was held in October. So I think those went out towards the end of September. We've had since then, we've explained why we thought they were a good idea. And it was an overview really of the changes. We then did what we call a temperature test survey, pretty much straight after that SGM, where it was clear that most of people responding were happy with the broad thrust of the changes, with some people wanting some more information and a small number feeling they didn't like the sort of thrust of the changes. We ran a couple of Zoom discussions with members who all were welcome. We did a face-to-face session in the Phoenix downstairs. We published an FAQ with some questions and comments that had been put in, and our responses to as many of them as we could. We ran a quick fire survey then on some of the issues that had come up on board terms and lengths and the question of independence. We got a lot of comments, and that was very useful. When we did those surveys, we left, open boxes for people to give their comments as well as just their sort of yes, no answers and so on. So they were useful and really helpful. I think where we ended up was that we continued with the plans that we had in terms of term lengths and term limits. And we decided that we would come back to the question of exactly how we ensure that we have the right level of independence amongst non-executive directors on the PLC, because there were quite some interesting responses in terms of the sorts of things that people thought were important to not have, if you like, in a non-executive direction, the sort of things that people found less important. So we wanted to come back to that, and we will come back to that. A new board will come back to that in the new year, or at least after tonight. So we then wrote up the results of all that and wrote up the proposals that you have in front of you tonight, or the resolutions that you have in front of you tonight. We've had, if you like, general feedback has been mostly positive. Of course, we've had people who say that they think these changes are not restrictive enough, if you like, in terms of how the PLC board and therefore the football club is controlled by the Dons Trust. We also have had some people saying that they think they're too restrictive and they don't let the PLC and the football club get on with its job. We've tried to balance those things. We think that the balance that we've got is a reasonable one. Clearly, nothing is set in stone for all time, and if these things need to be monitored over time, and if they're anything that could work better, it can be tweaked. We have some things that are unfinished that aren't in front of you tonight. So when we want to change, when we need us as the Dons Trust would need to change our restricted actions, those parts of the constitution that say, you need to have a particularly high level of votes, a high number of votes and a number of votes in favour. We have simply did not have time to prepare those and get people ready for the 2 votes or 1 vote, or plus over 50% turnout, etc. 50% turnout is 1,700 votes that we need to get. As you can see, we had about 1,200 people voting in the elections. So to get 1,700 people voting, that's going to take a bit of effort, and the new board is going to need to do that between now in the first quarter of 2023. So there we go. We didn't just start this a couple of months ago. We started a long time ago, as our longest standing board members will tell you. There have been, proposals about governance over some time. There was a report from some people from Imperial College in 2020. There was some governance changes in 2021, through June 2021, as an example. So this is not something we've come to quickly and lightly. So here we go, I suppose. We are starting with resolution number 5. And resolution number 5 is to approve the amendments. So all the way through this, there's going to be some bits that are talking about clauses and subsections and so on. And at any point, if anyone needs to stop and check what there are, stop me. Or at any point, if anyone needs to ask a question or make a contribution on any of these particular changes, then please do. But otherwise, I'm going to try and rattle through them because we do have a lot to get through. So resolution 5 is the amendments to clause 56 and clause 61 of the Dons Trust Constitution. And what that does is that changes the term of board members, Dons Trust board members, from the current 2 years to 3 years. That means that in future, future elections, the standard term that people will be standing for when they stand for the Dunsters Trust Board will be 3 years. Now, to get from here to there, that's a complicated thing that takes a number of years. And if you look at paper 4, paper 4, isn't it? If you look at paper 4, at the end of paper 4, there's kind of a glide path that tells you, how we get from here to there. It's quite complicated, but it takes us, I think, is that 4 years or 5?
The first 3 are 1, 2.
So yeah, I think it's 2020.
3 and 24.
Yeah.
Are transition.
Yeah.
And then 25 on.
So from 2025 onwards, everyone will be standing for a 3-year term. Obviously, that is subject to change if people stand down early or if there are any other reasons why the number needs to change. But as far as that's concerned, that will be the effect. So does anyone have anything they want to say about that or ask? Or shall we move straight to a vote? David Cox. Wait for the microphone.
Sorry, so the first election that this actually takes effect will be in 2023.
That's right. Okay, let's move to a vote then. So can I see, please, all those in favour of resolution 5? So Graham and Mark, we will need proper full-on counting for these because just to be clear, as this is a change to the Constitution, it requires 2/3 of those voting to be voting in favour. And that's why we need to check the numbers. So if you could all hold your papers up nice and clearly until Mark and Graham tell Martin that they're happy that they've finished counting. Okay, thank you. So anybody in the room voting against, please? I can count that, that's none. Anybody in the room abstaining on that question? That's 2. Thank you. So we move on then to resolution 6. Resolution 6 is to approve the amendment to clause 58 of the Dunsters Trust Constitution to insert a limit such that an elected member of the Society Board who has been in office continually for final 9 years after December 2022 shall be ineligible to stand for re-election for 1 year after reaching that 9-year point. Not easy to put in a small number of words, but essentially what this is saying is that we have the longest you can be on the Dunsters Trust Board as of now, like starting now, is 9 years. And once you've been of 3 terms, given that we've just, I think probably, don't know the official results yet, but I think we've just agreed to 3-year terms and therefore 3 terms, and then you need to take a break. And just to be clear, 9 years after December 2022, that is so that nobody who's currently already stood before this rule came in is affected by that. Charlie. Hold on a sec, wait for Mike.
So, sorry, just to be clear here, Christopher Schwartz asked to be clear on resolution 6, if approved, a person could run again after serving for 9 years after taking only 1 year off. Is that right?
That's right. They could take 1 year off and then they would be eligible to stand again after taking 1 year off. Jane at the back.
Can I just double check? I think you said it, but the clock doesn't start running on the 9 years until after today.
That's right.
So everybody's got a free pass up until now and then 9 years from now.
Absolutely. Yes. If there's nothing else on that, then we'll move to a vote. So all those in favour of resolution 6 in the room, please show, and online, please vote. And if we hold the cards nice and straightforwardly, please, until Graham and Mark have let us know that they've counted in the room. Thank you. In the room, votes against? That's none. And in the room, abstentions, please. 1. That's 2. 2 in the room. Thank you. The next resolution is resolution number 7. Resolution number 7 is an even longer one. I'll read it. To approve the amendments to clause 77 of the Dons Trust Constitution to change the composition of any subsidiary board other than AFC Wimbledon Ladies FC Limited, sorry, such that the subsidiary board will be made up as follows. An AFC Wimbledon chair as appointed from time to time by the Society Board, 2 directors representing minority shareholders, 3 directors who are Society Board members, and up to 6 non-executive directors appointed for specific knowledge and experience. For AFC Wimbledon Ladies FC Limited, there must be 1 member of the Society Board and 1 member of the AFCW PLC Board represented on its board. I think, although that's a lot of words, it's hopefully quite clear. All of those need to be in the same resolution because currently the Constitution says that any subsidiary board must contain a majority of Society Board members and Dons Trust Board members. And that has never been, by the way, has never been enforced as far as AFC Wimbledon Ladies FC Limited is concerned. And we don't believe that it would make sense to have exactly the same setup for AFC Wimbledon Ladies Limited FC, and that's why there's an exception there. So are there any questions or comments or thoughts that anyone would like to share on resolution number 7? Jane, David?
Thanks, Chris. You mentioned earlier about the debate between independent NEDs and non-independent NEDs. When do we anticipate that conversation coming either to members or to the board to have a conversation? Because that's, for me, that's the key bit that is missing from this. One word is missing from this to get me to vote for it.
That word is independent, I assume. Yeah, okay. So we need to define what independence is and when and how we care about it and to what extent. And that's a task on the new board's list, which we will discuss very briefly tomorrow night. But we will talk about a timetable for it.
And just to be clear, the chair is appointed from time to time. What is the time to time? And by the Society Board, 2 directors representing minority shareholders. So they don't necessarily have to be fans, but the 3 directors who are Society Board members are very likely to be fans already, right?
Yes. I mean, well, it's not technically impossible for members to vote for a member of the Dons Trust to be on the board who isn't a fan, but it sounds quite unlikely to me. Yes. So yes, I would say that. Sorry, the chair from time to time. Yeah, from time to time is one of those phrases that you find in legal documents. What it means is it's up to the society board to decide when that role needs to be changed, and that's just for the society board to decide when that role is appointed and when that role needs to be reappointed, and for the society board to do that. David.
Yes, sorry, quick question. Notwithstanding what might have happened in the past, does this scenario enable a majority of non-society board members to cast votes that might take the club in a particular direction without the trust board having to cast its vote and the members getting a vote?
Okay, so there are two things that are not in this resolution, but are in further resolutions. So if you look at resolution 8, for example, and if you look at resolution 16, then resolution 8 talks about how the Dons Trust board members on the AFCWPLC could vote together and stop anything from happening. So that's irrespective of the numbers. So if the 3, for example, society board members were to vote against a proposal on the PLC board, then it wouldn't happen, because that's set.
And may I just, so thank you for that. So is this vote subject to that vote passing?
No. It's
And why not?
Um,
Because if we pass this vote and that vote fails, that's quite significant change. I'm not saying it will fail, but we seem to be putting the cart before the horse in that respect. If we vote for the latter amendments, we then have the assurance that the board maintains its absolute control and the members maintain their absolute control. This way around, I fear that isn't guaranteed.
So the technical problem we have there, David, is that we don't have a formal outcome of the votes on the night because of the issues that we talked about previously about checking in terms of proxies that aren't double, people haven't counted, voted online, et cetera, et cetera. I think the vote would be very clear in the room. I think the vote would be fairly clear online, but it wouldn't technically be decided, if you will, or you couldn't be absolutely certain it would be decided. It would be like celebrating promotion after the game at Hampton and Richmond, if you like. Rather than at Staines.
I mean, it's clearly not for me to decide, but I mean, I just wonder how other people feel about that.
I mean, yeah, it's a reasonable challenge. I don't think there's any problem with swapping the order of the votes, if that helps you, David. Helps the issue, helps you with the issue. I mean, people have to take their, people will make their own decisions, won't they?
DETRA has been club owned by the society.
Understood.
Anything that would weaken that, I would have to or feel inclined to vote against. I can't speak for other people, but I just feel we need to be clear that we shouldn't just by a process put that at risk. Not that I think it will, but
Understood.
we should through process do that.
Okay, we can't see any reason why we shouldn't swap the order around so that we take resolution 8 and then resolution 16 and then resolution 7. Roger.
Okay, just my question was, when you guys were thinking about this, is there a sort of example of any new subsidiary board? So what would its role and purpose be?
I don't have, and I'm not aware of there being any intention for any new subsidiary board. There are quite a few at the moment. Some, they don't all operate. I mean, they don't really operate as separate organisations as such, but what do we have? We have Stadium Limited that doesn't really do anything. We have the Wider Interests of Football, which owns the stadium. We have Community Limited, which was set up to run the intended education hub. And the trading subsidiary AFC Wimbledon Limited and AFC Wimbledon Ladies FC Limited, which runs the AFC Wimbledon women's team. There's no intention at the moment. There's nothing on the table for any additional ones as we stand. Okay, so thanks, David, for that suggestion. We will then take resolution 8 and then resolution 16 and then we'll come back to resolution 7. That's okay with people. So resolution 8 is to further approve the amendment to clause 77 to provide for a block vote such that where all the society board members on the AFCW PLC board who are voting vote against any PLC board resolution, that resolution shall fail irrespective of the numbers of votes in favour. Is that clear to everybody? Anybody need any clarification on that? Or shall we move straight to a vote on that one? Sorry, David, go on. No, go on.
Those board members on this who are casting the vote are still getting their instruction from the board and or the members. So they're not voting unilaterally for the board without consultation.
I mean, that wouldn't change from the situation now, if you like. So there's no change to that. So
true, but at the moment there is a perceived majority. Whether that's been actually the case, that has always been how it's stated.
There's always been a majority of people for example, PLC board who are Don's Trust board members, and how those people have voted is not changing in this scenario. There will be things which come up. You know, I'm not quite sure how to answer the question, David, to be honest. I mean, things, anybody on a board will vote according to their role and their position and what they've been asked to do and what they need to do and their duties. And the duty of the Don's Trust board is to represent the Don's Trust and the Don's Trust members. Charlie, sorry. Okay. Okay, so online voting for 7 was opened, so it has been closed and it will be opened again when we come back to it. Yeah, there'll be a whole new poll.
And sorry, secondly, just to pick up on David's point, wearing more of a, God, there's too many wires in this place. Wearing more of a PLC hat of someone who's been on the DTB, I think there have been incredibly few, I can remember very, very few times that the PLC board votes. It's much more a case that the members of the DTB who go there tell the PLC what the view of the DTB or the Don's Trust rather on behalf of its members has been, and then that view has been expressed, which is of course the view of the majority shareholders. So I think there are very, very few occasions where there's been a vote of number of directors sitting on the PLC, because of course that isn't really how the vote works, because in most meaningful cases, whoever turns up on behalf of the trust represents currently 75% of the shareholder.
Yeah, it's
Now, see if I can
Not
work out how we can
something-
get the screen back.
Yeah, thanks, Charlie. It's not something that happens. But David, I guess I understand that you're looking at the extreme possible case. So, okay. Okay, so resolution 8, then, if there aren't any further questions on resolution 8, there is a further question on resolution 8, sorry. Hannah.
It's a question from Tim Hillier on resolutions 8 and 15. Is there a reason for deciding upon a block vote rather than a golden share?
I mean, there must be a golden share. I mean, a golden share is a term that, you know, it's a fairly loose term. It would depend what it was. Golden share is usually something that's reserved to particular instances or particular decisions rather than this, which is something to do with any decision which the Duns Trust Board might not like. The restricted actions and the memorandum of understanding is, I guess, here the equivalent of the golden share idea, which is relevant to resolution 16. Okay. Let's take a vote. Resolution 8 to further approve the amendments to clause 77 to provide for a block vote. All those in the room in favour, please, and if you could hold them up clearly while Mark and Graham count carefully. Thank you. And anybody in the room voting against? That's none. Thank you. And anyone in the room abstaining? And again, that's none. Thanks very much. So we'll move on. We said that we would next take resolution 16. Is the amending the articles to include the actions. So resolution 16 is the resolution which authorises the Duns Trust to cast its vote in favour of a resolution at the PLC AGM later, which inserts the restricted actions and other items into the Articles of Association of AFCW PLC, so that it isn't simply a question about changing our rules for the Duns Trust, but also changing the PLC rules so that they match, so that the other part of what David was asking about is covered in terms of the particular issues and questions. So, are there any questions on that or anything that anyone would like to say on that before we move to a vote? Anything online? Nope. Okie doke. Great. Let's have a vote then. All those in favour of resolution 16 to authorise the Duns Trust Board to cast the trust vote at AFCW PLC's annual general meeting in favour of amending the articles to include the new Schedule 1. Everyone could hold up there until we have the nod we have the nod. Thank you very much. Anybody in the room who would like to vote against? And anybody in, that's none. Anybody in the room who'd like to abstain? That's none. Just to complete the circle on that, then we'll move to resolution 9. which approves the insertion of a new clause 78 in the Dons Trust Constitution to set out the terms of a memorandum of association between the Society Board and the AFCW PLC Board. And that completes that circle. Any questions on that, or shall we move straight to a vote? Straight to a vote. All those in favour of resolution number 9 to approve the insertion of a new clause 78. Thankfully, in the Constitution there was a 78 and it said there is no rule 78. So now we have a rule 78. It's quite exciting. We good? Yep. Oh, no, hang on. Yep, we're good. Thank you. Anybody?
Yes.
Yes, sorry, there is a typo there. It's memorandum of understanding. I think I said memorandum of understanding, but it does say memorandum of association. It's a minor typo. Certainly, will do. Yes. We voted, Charlie. Did I? Anybody in the room voting against? And that's none. And anybody in the room abstaining? That's none as well. So now we're going back to number 7. So we have discussed this. So I think I'm hoping that there's no need for that everybody's clear, and therefore we don't need any further explanation or indeed ado. Remember over here, wait for the microphone. If you can wait for the microphone, then everyone in the room can hear you.
Just for clarity, is the chair Dons Trust member? It doesn't have to be. I just want to be clear on that.
Does the AFC Wimbledon chair to be appointed from time to time have to be a Dons Trust member? No, I'm just getting it. That's the question, yeah. This rule does not say so. I don't think we've considered that as a question, to be honest, but this rule does not say so. So if we pass this rule, it wouldn't have to be. The AFC Wimbledon chair is a member of the Dons Trust and has been since inception. Okay, all those in favour? In the room, if you would hold your cards up straightforwardly so that we can check. And then when Mark and Graham have given us the nod, I will let you know. Thank you. So anybody in the room who would like to vote against? That's 1. And anybody in the room who would like to abstain? That's none. Thank you. No, resolution 10 is next, and we're not going to have any discussion at all. All those in favour of the registered address being Tower Lane. Do you want us to count these, Martin? Thank you. Anybody in the room who would like to vote against, please go home. Anybody in the room who would like to abstain? Thank you very much. Okay. Yeah, no, I'm happy to, you give me the nod. Yes, I noted that had already been said, but it's been double done now. So there we go. You ready? Resolution 11. We're almost halfway there. So to approve the amendment to clause 54 of the Doncaster Constitution to change the minimum number of society board members from 9 to 8. This is to correct an anomaly in the Constitution where there is a clause which says 9 and a clause which says 8. When earlier this year we fell below 9, Martin quite rightly pointed out the other clause which says that therefore we couldn't do anything. So we need to have the same number in those two clauses, and therefore we're asking to change clause 54 so that it gives a minimum number of 8. Are there any questions on this one, or can we move straight to a vote? Straight to a vote. All those in favour in the room, please show. Mark and Graham, if you could give us the nod when you're happy. Oh, sorry, I didn't see your thumb. I thought it was your voting card. Thank you, everybody. Anybody in the room who wants to vote against? That's none. And anybody in the room who would like to abstain? That's also none. Excellent. Thank you. Number 12, to authorise the Dons Trust Board to cast the trust's votes at the AFCW PLC annual general meeting in favour of amending Article 84.1 of the PLC articles to change the number of PLC directors to be a minimum of 4, including 2 from the society board and a maximum of 12. So currently, I think the minimum on the AFCW PLC board is 2, which just isn't right. It never has. We've never had 2. We wouldn't ever be 2, but it just isn't right. So we're just fixing it. So I don't think there's anything much to discuss on this one. But if there is, anyone wants to let us know. Otherwise, all those in favour. Mark and Graham, if you could let us know. Thank you. Anybody in the room who wants to vote against? That's none. Charlie, you appear to be voting against at the moment. I'm sure you're not. You're not. Good. And anyone in the room who wants to abstain? Thank you very much. Okay. Just pause for a moment there to ensure that those in the online community are able to follow and keep up. Okie dokie. Well, then that's lovely, isn't it? So resolution 13, unlucky for some, to authorise the Dons Trust Board to, I do feel a bit like a bingo caller, actually, to be honest. To authorise the Dons Trust Board to cast the trust's votes at AFCW PLC's AGM in favour of amending Article 84.3 to include wording such that AFCW PLC will be a board of 9 to 12 members, as noted in the amendment to clause 77 of the Dons Trust Constitution in Resolution 7. So we passed Resolution 7. This gives effect to it in the PLC articles. All those in favour? In the room? Mark and Graham, if you could give us a nod when we're done. Thank you. In the room, anyone voting against? That's 1. And in the room, anyone abstaining? That's none. Thank you. So resolution 14. Resolution 14 authorises the DCB to cast the votes at the PLC AGM such that directors of AFCW PLC board wishing to stand for re-election after 3 terms of 3 years each shall be ineligible to stand for 1 year after reaching that 9-year point. This is the same rule, if you like, that we've just added to the Bonds Trust. We're now adding that to the PLC again to start from the same point. Any questions? David has a question.
Are there any exceptions perceived? Because being a trust member and trust board member is different from being a PLC board director. And it could be that to ask someone to step, I'm not suggesting this is wrong, by the way, but to ask someone to step down at what might be a crucial time might have detrimental impact. Was any consideration given to that?
We did have that conversation, and where we got to in the end was that we have 9 years to worry about it. To be absolutely frank. So it's one of those questions where, if such circumstances arise over that period, then we should, consider it and reconsider it. It isn't. Okay. In the room then, all those in favour of resolution 14. Mark and Graham, let us know. Thank you. And in the room, votes against. And in the room, abstentions. Super. Thank you very much. How are we doing online? Good. Okay, excellent. Resolution 15, again, is a bit of tidying up in the PLC articles, to be absolutely frank. The PLC articles allow for the chair to have a casting vote in 18 years. We've never even thought about whether there should be one used, never has been. And also the quorum has been, too low. And again, we've never had a meeting with the minimum quorum, and it also puts that block vote that we talked about earlier into the PLC articles. Jane, you got a question? Jane at the back there.
Thanks. Just so I've got this right, the PLC number can now go up to 12 people, but your quorum is 4, which is a third of people voting.
Yes.
Why is it so low? What was the decision that made it so low? Because normal practice is 50% of a board. Why is it not 6?
We doubled it. I mean, I'm happy to, think and suggest to the new board that we think about, doing something else and revisiting that. I think the thing is that those up to 6 additional members don't currently exist. So
it's 4 at the moment because that makes sense. But when you've got a board of 12.
Sure, no, absolutely. So it's something that should be on the new board's agenda to think about as we do build up the board, that perhaps the quorum should be updated, potentially even to replace the number with a proportion, which might be a better way of doing it.
Yeah, it means that your hands aren't
because
tied.
otherwise, if we went above 4 and there's only 6, then you are kind of you need a couple of people, and then you might be in trouble. So that's something for the new board.
Okay, thank you,
James. All those in favour of resolution 15 in the room, and if we could hold them up until Mark and Graham give us the nod. Thank you. In the room, anyone voting against, please? That looks like none. And in the room, anyone abstaining? That's 1. Tax. Resolution 16, we have already voted on.
So, yeah, I know we've already voted on this, but Tim Hilliard's asked a question we should probably address. Tim says, in my understanding, a memorandum of understanding between a trust and a club is usually non-contractual and therefore non-binding. Why has it been decided to go against the norm and integrate a memorandum of understanding into the constitution of the trust and the members and arts of the PLC?
So that it has, I mean, I'm not sure that that's necessarily. There are different practices in different places. So it may be that there are some places where it's non-contractual and non-binding. But we thought that contractual and binding, not contractual, but binding was what would work best for AFC Wimbledon. So that's why we put that in. I don't think from the feedback that we've had, I don't think quite a bit of the feedback we had was about how do you make sure that this is definitely, you know, something that needs to be a memorandum of understanding might be a bit weak, et cetera, et cetera. So the thinking was on the board already, but was reinforced by the feedback that we had when engaging with members. Resolution 17, home straight. Resolution 17 authorises us to vote in favour of approving the AFCW PLC accounts for the year ended 30th of June 2022. Any questions on that one, or shall we move straight to a vote? Let's move straight to a vote. All those in favour of resolution 17 in the room, please hold your hands up. Thank you. In the room, anyone voting against, please? That's none. And in the room, anyone abstaining? That's also none. Thank you very much. Resolution 18 allows the Dons Trust Board to vote in favour of approving the reappointment of BDO LLP as auditors of AFCW PLC. We did have a discussion about the potential for looking at whether we should be retendering our audit at some point in the future. Obviously, we would have the same auditors for the trust as for the club, so the same conversation would apply there. With that in mind, all those in favour? Thank you. In the room, voting against? That's one. Thank you. And in the room, abstaining? That's none. Okay, super. Thank you. Resolution 19 to authorise the Dons Trust Board to cast the trust votes at AFCW PLC's AGM in favour of approving the reappointment of Michael Andrew Buckley as director of the company. Should we move that straight to a vote? We need to wait for the online community to be ready. Okay, all those in favour, please show. Resolution 19. Thank you. In the room, anyone voting against? Roger, you're not voting against. You've already voted in favour. Anyone voting against? No. And anyone abstaining in the room? One abstention from Michael Andrew Buckley. Resolution 20 to authorise the Dons Trust Board to cast the trust votes at AFCW PLC's annual general meeting in favour of approving the appointment of Chris Stewart as director of the company. Are we ready? No, we're not ready. We have to wait. We have to wait. Suspense is killing me. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. In the room, any against? And in the room, any abstentions? I'm copying Nick. Thank you. Resolution 21 comes next, but we're going to pause for a few seconds to let those in the online community make sure they're ready to join us in our ultimate resolution. How exciting is that, eh?
Just a question. Do we know how many people are online?
How many logged in? About 60. Okay. We had about 50 proxies, yeah. So if there's no doubling up, then I don't know. We've got them. So there's about 40 in the room, about 50 proxies, and about 60 online-ish. Assuming there's no duplication there, which there might be one or two. So, we ready? Hannah? Okay, resolution 21 to authorise the Dons Trust Board to cast the trust votes at AFCW PLC's annual general meeting in favour of approving the appointment of Michelle Marie Little as director of the company. All those in favour? And Michelle is not following me. Quite rightly voting in favour of herself. Thank you very much. Anybody in the room would like to vote against? And anybody in the room abstaining? That's super. That concludes all of the resolutions. Can I just tip my hat to everybody for your patience and for asking some good questions and for not filling up time asking questions that didn't need to be asked. Hopefully the consultation itself would have helped with a lot of those things. And given us the opportunity to get through that in, I reckon that's pretty record time, actually, 21 resolutions. So well done, everybody. Thank you very much. What that means is that we can move on to item 8 on the agenda, which is a general discussion with members. So, what would you like to talk about? We do have with us tonight the AFC Wimbledon Chair, Mick Buckley. We do have with us tonight AFC Wimbledon's Managing Director, Danny Macklin. I think I can see somebody else at the back, but I can't quite see, not absolutely certain, so I'm not going to announce anybody I can't see. So if you have questions which are more of an AFC Wimbledon rather than a Dons Trust bent, then people are happy to give answers or to do their best to give answers to those as well. So the floor is yours, and you're starting
with me. Yeah, right. It's Andy Ramsden. I'm just going to ask the question. It was brought up in a recent meeting about renewal of shirts, the replica shirts. I can't remember what the solution was, or did we not decide on anything?
So it's a very good question. By the way, we only have 2 microphones. So if I'm going to carry on sharing, and anybody else, well, you might have to do double running, Andy, that's all. So I think that issues on that front may well have been overtaken by events. And I don't know, Danny, if you want to give a brief outline of where we are as far as the whole kit thing is concerned.
Yeah, good evening. The good news is I'm bizarrely losing my voice, feel perfectly fine, but I'm actually losing my voice. So much pleasure to you guys. So it has been a complex issue. Elite, who are effectively our distributing partner on behalf of Hummel, have gone into administration. As a result, we will be almost certainly moving to a new kit partner from the 23-24 season. But news to follow on how that will look in terms of kit designs. And yeah, I appreciate that's not ideal, but we will communicate that as soon as we're in a position to do so. These events clearly have been out of our control, and we're now trying to find the best route forward possible for the club in the short, medium and long term.
Yeah, I have a question back on that. Does that mean that distributor is the only people that can handle Hummel?
I'm not able to go into the sensitivities of the contract because we are still at a stage of negotiation with a number of parties. But at the moment, the only contract that is available within the UK is directly with Elite, who no longer exist in their original entity, so to speak.
Charlie, what works best? Do we need to grab someone to come up here? So, I kind of thought that's what we were doing now, to be honest. Yeah, I think we probably would need you to come up here, Danny. Is that all right? Thank you very much. Yeah. And Mick, if you want to hang around as well, that would be great. It's just that we are limited on cameras and also on microphones. So actually, if we depose everybody apart from me, and then Mick, if you want to join us up here as well, then anybody who is answering questions can not only be heard, but can also be seen as well by those online. So that would be great. Sorry, where were we?
We answered the question, I think.
Great, super, thank you, excellent. What else have we got in the room? Do we have any questions online? There's a questioner right there at the back there. So we're taking any questions or comments from anybody about anything.
What I wanted to ask, what's the current position on the Memorial Garden?
Current position on the Memorial Garden. There we go. Do you know the answer to that?
It's something that we discussed literally last week. I can't give an exact timescale. We want to make sure that we find the right place for it that's got a home for medium and, more importantly, the long term. And we're continuing discussions with Wish on that, with John Lynch and others. And as soon as we've got news to share on something I think is hugely important to the fan base and to our community, we will let everyone know.
Thanks, Danny. Anything else in the room? Do we have any questions online at all? We do have questions online. So after Matt, if we could bring the mic over to Hannah and Charlie. Matt.
Danny, have you found the place? Just overall impressions. What have you found? What are the shit shows? What's good? What's bad? Just tell us.
Microphones need improving. I need a new voice box. I've been talking too much today. There's nothing that's broken that can't be fixed. And there's nothing that's broken that's going to stop the wheel from spinning. Clearly on the pitch has been very good since the start of November. And so credit must go, as we said, at the Meet Johnny and Mick and me night, for want of a better phrase, and credit to his team behind the scenes, as well as obviously the players that get results. That's helped massively. We've got a number of things to improve upon to drive our revenues from all activity. I don't just mean commercial, I mean retail, ticketing, how we engage the community. There's a lot that we've got to do, and we've got plans in place and being progressed to make that a reality. Some are easy wins, some are going to be more medium to long term, but that's all I can say before my voice does go on that one. Thank you.
Super, thanks. Now we've got some questions from our online
Yeah,
community.
so quite a few of them pick up on that, Danny, so we might as well go through those first. One of them was, how happy are we with the Broncos ground share revenue? And would we consider Chelsea's women instead? I think that's two questions, but I mean, first of all, let's probably thoughts on the Broncos ground share.
Yeah, we've got a positive working relationship with them. Broncos are here because of me, actually, because they approached another club, and I was more than happy to recommend to have the discussion. That was prior to knowing I was coming here. But it's important to stress that we want to make sure that we help Broncos provide a valuable venue at the Cherry Red Records Stadium for them to play their games. We want to try and drive attendances, want to encourage their fans to come to our games, and ultimately want to make sure that the partnership continues to flourish for the number of years that we've got left in the original agreement.
This is probably back to Chris for a second, sorry. If the new board structures are passed, are there any plans to formally review the effectiveness of the new structures after 2, 3 or 4 years, as and when needed?
So we have talked about a plan to review the effectiveness of board members, which is not quite exactly what the question was asked, but we have talked about that, and I know Michelle has some thoughts about other organisations who do sort of board effectiveness reviews and how we might bring that into our organisation. In terms of a formal review or a semi-formal review of the structures themselves, I think that needs to be something that's on the new board's agenda. It's something that I wouldn't want to wait 2 years for, to be honest. I think it would. We need to know what's effective much sooner than that, and it's for both of the boards to review that on an ongoing basis. We don't have a date in the diary for a formal report on it, if you like, and maybe that's something the new board will pick up.
Thanks for that. Probably back to Danny again. Could anyone discuss the timelines on adjusting the way we return season tickets? It's a ticketing question, Danny. You might get a few of these. And the types of rewards we could get for returns. It continues to be frustrating. Next season is fine, apparently, but it would be good to know.
Yeah, good question. It's something that we're working on behind the scenes to make sure the system works. We want to be able to incentivize returning season cards. But if I'm honest, that needs to be at the stage when we are close to sell out in a particular stand or across the ground. We have to be mindful that if we're constantly giving part rebates to season card holders, that's going to cost us money. It's not to say we won't do it, but it's all being reviewed at the moment to make sure that it works when we need it and it works in the right way for the benefit of season card holders as well as the club.
On ticketing, are all the ticket turnstiles at the ground now working properly, and will they be fully staffed from now on?
We've had a number of issues that have now been resolved. They were resolved before, but the gremlin I literally mean a gremlin in terms of like a rat, was causing issues. That issue has now been resolved. And we now are confident that it's now working. I won't say it's fixed forever, but it's certainly fixed for now. And we did have some staffing issues. We've obviously gone through a pretty seismic change with regard to stewarding, and that did have a knock-on effect of that for 2 games, which was too many. But confident that is now resolved. And the key message is to arrive as early as you can, because we've got people arriving at 5 to 3 expect to be in their seat with a hot dog or a lemonade in their hand by 3 o'clock, and there's no stadium in the world that you can do that. So we encourage people to get here early, ideally about 1:30, and enjoy an hour and a half of the build up to the match day.
Okay. Please bear in mind I'm only the funnel for these questions. When will ticket prices be reviewed, as they appear expensive and are unlikely to attract new support at current price?
So we are in the process of benchmarking all of our prices against clubs a similar level and a similar neck of the woods, so to speak. We have to again find the balance between affordability in the middle of a global financial crisis, as well as the cost of living crisis here in the UK, balancing against the needs of the club and to make sure that season tickets remain the prime value for our most loyalist of fans. So under permanent review, want to make sure that we're appealing to young, old, young adults, I think is a category that we sometimes leave behind. A 16-year-old doesn't mean that they can afford an adult ticket. So that's one of many things that we are exploring ready for next season.
Thanks for that. Another one coming from Stu says, what is the situation with the player of the match after games? I mean, I think this is the honest answer is this is still a work in progress, but he notes at Grimsby, we had 2 separate player of the match, one outside the Phoenix and one other in the Silver Lounge. I mean, I would editorialise slightly here for Stu that this has been discussed at PLC and trust meetings, and I think it's still a bit of a work in progress is the honest answer that we're still going through. But do you want to add anything to my waffle there, Danny?
No, it's a good summary, Charlie. So we are currently in dialogue with a number of groups, season ticket holders in here. It's something that I think that they should also get, but as important as that is general fans should be able to see and 9 times out of 10 hopefully celebrate the man of the match. So we were going to trial it this Saturday just gone, obviously frozen weather put pay to that, but we will communicate our plans ahead of, we certainly won't be changing anything for Boxing Day, but ahead of the Bradford game on the 14th of January.
Okay, on which note, someone asks, Matthew Howard asks, has the pitch thawed out yet?
About 3 o'clock yesterday when the rain came down massively. I'll take this opportunity to thank Luke and a number of staff, including myself, who spent a good couple of days last week clearing to try and make best we could for yesterday and for Saturday in equal importance. We lost out to -7, -8 temperatures that occurred Wednesday, Thursday, and virtually that temperature Friday night.
Just going back to the quick question, Tim Hillier asked, is there any financial exposure for AFC Wimbledon against Hummel and their distributor? Is there any danger of losing any deposits or prepayments? I appreciate that's a difficult one to get into in detail, but is there anything else you can add on that?
Again, there are some commercial sensitivities regarding this. It is a company that's in administration, but we reduced our risk significantly in terms of that area. And we're now moving forward to make sure that we've got everything in place that we need to. But we'll be able to answer that question in a bit more detail as the weeks and months. But so there is not anything that's of any risk really at all. It's just making sure now that we get next season's kit. And having looked at what we're doing and the materials, I'm excited about the range we're going to have. We've got a great range with Hummel. That's not belittling it, but I think we're going to have an equally, if not better, range, designs, etc. for next season than what we've currently got.
Okay, Adam Proctor asks, this might be one also to bring Mick in on as well. The first team is working well, but there's still some concerns in the depth of squad. Do we have what we considered a good budget for the January window? And is there anything fans could do to help that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thanks, Adam. So as regards the January transfer window, we would very much like to deliver the budget we set ourselves for this year. If you remember, we had a goal of breaking even and not increasing our debts from 10 million to 10 million and 1, or whatever that number is. A number of the budget areas are going very well. Some are not going so well, but on balance, we think we do have the flexibility within the budget to both hit the budget, break even, and spend some money in January. So the manager has identified a couple of areas where he would like to increase the depth, if you like. The PLC board has actually told him to go away and come back and really tell us, you know, what else in an ideal world he would like, but without making any promises. And yeah, there's always more the fans can do, but then, you know, the fans of this club have stepped up time and time again in recent times. We have had an inquiry from the We Are Wimbledon Fund, who, you know, are keen to know what they can do to help us in January, and we'll respond to them quite shortly.
Great, thanks, Mick. Yes, on the subject of the fans stepping up, anonymous attendee asks, Are there any plans to extend the other stands anytime soon? Would love to see Plough Lane's full potential, or will the Plough Lane bonds hold us back for years on end? I'm going to try not to give my opinion of the way that's phrased and let you three have a stab. It is annoying the way the bonds have held us back, isn't it? But go on.
You go first.
I'm just going to say, Charlie, that is you refraining from giving your own view, is it?
Yeah, broadly.
We don't currently have a date on a plan for extending the stadium. There isn't.
No, but I mean, ultimately, there's a dream and a vision, and I'm sure this stadium will be extended at some point, and it will be a combination of a demand for more space and us identifying a plan where we can get a return on whatever the investment is. There's been quite a lot of work done by the development committee, Roger's sitting out there, where they have looked at our footprint here at Plough Lane and looked at some of the exciting things we could do in the future. So they are actively dreaming and thinking about the kind of partnerships that would enable us to extend the stadium. So as I say to a lot of you, whilst we do have the debt that we have, and we take that very seriously, we also have got this land, you know, which is potentially immensely very valuable. So we just need to work out how to increase the demand from fans, so we don't have enough room in the stadium, and then how to create the right model whereby we can expand when we need to.
A much shorter one. Lauren asks, are all the lifts fixed yet? I thought that was my answer. I mean, from having been here today, the answer is one is, I think, isn't it? Danny, do you want to take that any further?
Yeah, it's a 50% improvement. And that's where the joke ends. They were both working. It's an ongoing issue that we're not going to get fixed this side of January. It's a daily question that I pose to those in charge of it, and they're doing everything we can. So we're now working with the installer, and it appears everyone that was ever connected with putting that in, it's a little bit was past the blame. It's now get this sorted, and I've said that lifts must be in working order. Don't want them working for a day and then stopping. This is a crazy situation and must be resolved for when we have numbers in for mid-January. Let's not put it in Boxing Day, but we're not going to get it done by then.
Okay, well, you've got you, Danny. What are Danny's plans to increase non-match day revenue, e.g. event hire? Also, what's happening with the Event Education Hub and other revenue-generating Plough Lane projects?
I'll deal with the second one first. So in terms of the Education Hub, we continue to explore options that are viable for the medium and long term for the club. In terms of what we could do with the third floor, that might be education-led. It may also be essential to make that also a match day option. And then in terms of the facilities we have got, we obviously sit here now in the Silver Lounge. There is some enhancements that we can make very cheaply. And there are some enhancements that aren't so cheap, all of which do need to happen for us to realise the potential of this floor, of these rooms, these facilities. I spend a lot of my nights walking the borough and surrounding boroughs because I've got nothing better to do of an evening. And it does showcase how good a facility we've got and the template that we've got. We've now just got to fine tune that and then hopefully turn on the taps to market and sell this venue like we've never done before and give it a full launch. I won't use the word relaunch because I think it had a part launch because of COVID restrictions. We should be very proud of what we've got. We just now need to enhance it, improve it, embrace it, and make it a 365-day-a-year business as much as possible. At the moment, it's a 50 to 60 days. Got a long way to go, but we're on the journey to get there.
Thank you very much. Bringing probably Mick in as well on this. Family Fun Day was a great success last year, despite the poor weather. Lots of new families and children enjoyed the activities and their time together on the pitch. Will this take place again in 2023?
Yes, we're looking at various models, but we have a day and we will have a Family Fun Day concept in 2023.
Okay, a couple more to run through here. We should then probably come back to people in the room. A couple of hopefully slightly quicker answers. With the continuing strikes on the rail service, Have we thought about any shuttle services potentially from local areas such as Morden, Range Park, New Morden and Epsom? They would be great. Hackney would be handy as well, I'd like to add. But this would ensure we actually get bums on seats, as I know many people have decided not to come due to strikes and rail services.
Come and pick you up from your door, Charlie.
Yeah, please.
Door service, yeah, no problem. I think it's a good suggestion. Is it financially viable? I think would be tough. The train strikes are causing issues. I was in London on Friday. You could just see firsthand the effect this had on the economy, and bars and restaurants is terrifying. And we no doubt would have had a hit on it on Saturday. I think we need to review what happens over the next couple of weeks without going into the politics of it, but between government and RMT, etc. And if this is to continue, we have to look at ways that we can do it. Putting on coaches, having done it at previous club, is a very costly and administratively heavy task to do. But if this is to continue, we might have no choice but to further explore it.
Okay, one more here for Danny, Mick, and then there's two, I think, are more trust focused. So could Danny and Mick talk about the kind of partnerships they're looking towards and the types of companies they may be, please?
Any company out there? We're blessed. There's a great stat here that was given by our catering partners earlier. 89% of companies in the district of, or borough of where we are in Morden have 9 or less employees, which showcase how many small businesses we've got in this area. But on the reverse, showcase that we haven't got an abundance, as I say, we haven't got any of big businesses in the area. But we should be looking further afield as well as what's on our doorstep. We want to make sure we're relevant, timely, and able to offer a package to Bob the Builder, as well as conglomerates that want to be associated with the fantastic story that we've not only had, that we're having, and we're going to have. And that's where we're going to try and position ourselves in 2023 to capitalise and build packages that really share that vision, share that journey, share that ethos. And we should be engaging with companies that have a similar ethos to us in terms of cooperative natures, etc. And is a little bit watch this space. We've got room to grow in that. There's definitely no doubt in that. And we want to raise that revenue to reach a new ceiling and to be competing against League One clubs in terms of what they generate off the field. We have a little way to go, but again, I think I've got a roadmap and we've got a roadmap to get there.
Thanks for that. A good question from Adam Nelson here. Do we have any measurement available on the number of international members of the Dons Trust? And a follow-up based on that, if sufficient numbers, is there any value in formalising a specific standing committee with a focus to best using the international interest to better both the team and the local community there? So that probably goes back to Chris. I would say, based on the last 2 years of being on the board, that we have started a process of trying to work out how we would frankly look at better engaging people abroad. And we've had quite a few ideas around this, and we've lacked bandwidth to take it on, is the honest answer. It partly comes down to the match day content, which we all know could and soon will be better. And yes, I think the idea of formalizing it, we discussed a while ago, the idea of having, you know, how formal you call it doesn't really matter, but essentially anything from watch parties to, you know, just getting fans together in other geographies to get together, watch the games together and to try and get those more involved, because we always know that we have loads of visitors over, Danish Dons, Swedish Dons, Americans. So I'd say we was on our list for the last 2 years. We haven't quite covered it, but I'll let you guys answer as well.
It's sort of related to the previous question, in as much as, you know, we're talking about what kind of companies we want partnerships with. And whilst Danny was articulating, I was kind of thinking, you know, we've never really packaged our unique story and in a process-driven way got it out to as many potential partners as possible. And that's corporate partners, but it's also potential fans and potential fans overseas. And I think, you know, Danny and the team have already started thinking about the international idea, right? So maybe you say a bit more about that.
I don't want to replicate what we did at the team in East London, often being in their league position, but the reality is that the fan base that we've got needs to be better identified by us as a club and the board and the trust, etc. I think we need to shout loud and proud the watch parties, doing international days where we, 8 months in advance say that the game in April is going to become an international day where we encourage fans, if they can, to come over. It's getting groups together. I was in a certain district in Spain when I was in the process of applying for this, and just randomly bumped into two expats that were living in Spain with Wimbledon shirts on, and entered dialogue with them, and it just gave an indication just of a small element of the community we've got there. So it is a little bit, again, watch this space, and I think we can really bring that together. Our streaming product needs to improve and will, and when that does, I think that can entice people to be more engaged with the club year round, and not just casually flirting and looking at the results.
Just on that then, Pam Wall says, as a new member and fan in the US, what can we do to help and get more involved? So, I mean, A, watch all our games, and B, don't pay us all your money. That's the key points on there, but anything else to add? That was just a personal opinion, obviously. I'm no longer on the board as of about 10 minutes ago. So
no, you're still on the board until the meeting closes. But Niall, I think, wants to say something. I think relevant to the subject. I think.
Go on, let's pass it over to Niall.
So do you, whilst we're just waiting for Niall to get the microphone, do you think if there's anyone else in the room who'd like to ask or say or whatever, then that would be good?
Yeah, thank you. So what we do have is we have our theme groups, and one of the theme groups is the community theme group. And one of the things we've been identifying there is exactly that, looking at how we engage and grow international fans and international dimension. So we've had a number of conversations about that. And so that's certainly, if somebody wanted to get involved, I mean, obviously it's dependent on the new board obviously coming in, but at the moment there is a remit on there to look particularly at that dimension. So obviously overseas fans could get involved in that with their suggestions and their ideas, because we are very committed towards growing and looking at the potential of our story internationally.
Thanks very much, Niall. So we're going to wrap up fairly soon on the questions. Did say that we'd make sure there was half an hour, and I think we're coming up to about half an hour. So I think there might be one or two online. There's a couple more in the room. So do please go ahead.
Just a fairly domestic question. Stewarding, I don't know how they're paid or how much they're paid, but we seem to have an enormous amount of stewards, rather young chaps who, well, young people, I should say. Do we need so many? That's a question. And one other question. Can we have some Baltic pies back again, please?
I'll do the first one, because the second one might be more of a fun answer. The first one is we have the exact number that we need. We also have to make sure that we have a surplus, because if we don't have the number we need, we're under permanent, as every football club is, SGSA and our council, etc., FA, EFL, permanently audit us. So if we all of a sudden had less stewards than we have for numbers of spectators in the ground, we'd have a restriction on our crowd. So we have to take care of that. And what we're going to be doing in January is a recruitment drive. I want to have more what we would call in-house paid for stewards, rather than just through agency, because I like continuity and I like stewards to be seen as a fan service and not just a safety service. Safety comes first, but the fan engagement and the fan experience to me are as equally as important. And the Balties, I didn't realise we weren't. So Bao, who is at the back of the room, is charged with that area of the business. And between me and him, we eat enough pies, so we'll make sure that the ones we have are available for others to consume as well, because they are good. And those that haven't tried them should.
Thanks. Colin.
Hi. One, I think mainly for Mick, probably. Mick, you said that in December we'd find out exactly where we are in the League Two budget league. Have you got that information now?
So we have the information that was submitted to the EFL in the summer before the season started. And we will get that updated, we hope, before the January transfer window. So in terms of what clubs told the EFL before the season started, which we've only just found out, we are 15th in that league table. And the information we will get before the January transfer window is the real figures rather than the projected figures. So the projected figures were 15th. We'll see what the real figures are.
Yeah, I think this one might be for Chris, actually. We've just passed a resolution, apologies, forget which one it was, that said that if the Dons Trust board members on the PLC board vote en bloc against, then it doesn't pass. What if the scenario the other way round was to happen, where the Dons Trust put something to the Dons Trust board and they voted en bloc to pass it, but the other members of the board voted against? Does the Dons Trust board vote still have the same emphasis?
No. So that is constructed as a blocking vote rather than as a forcing vote, if you like. So it is a protection rather than an intention to directly set the policy, if you will. So the other thing to remember when thinking about all the things is that in the end, as a 75% shareholder, two things. One is that we have the power to appoint and disappoint directors of the PLC. And we also have the power to call general meeting, an extraordinary general meeting as well. So again, it's a combination of all of those things, but no, it was specifically constructed as a way of making sure something bad doesn't happen rather than as a way of making something happen. Okay, so we have done the full half hour as promised, and we covered an awful lot of issues. So I hope that we're okay to move on. We have any other business. I've not been notified of any other business in advance. So unless anybody has anything in the room, I have one item myself. So the next thing we're going to do once we close this meeting is that we will open the AFCW PLC AGM. That won't take very long, but there will be a number of resolutions to pass, as I'm sure those of you who are PLC shareholders are aware. Of course, with the Dons Trust board carrying over 75% of the votes, it doesn't really matter what anyone else thinks, but we will be having the meeting shortly. But before we do that, so for that meeting, obviously, the current PLC board chair, Ian McNay, who's been here for the meeting, for the DT meeting as a DT member as well, and voting away as a member. Ian has been chair of the PLC since its formation in 2003. Is that right? I think so. It's 19 years that Ian's been in the chair. Some of that has been, obviously that's a long time for any of us. And Ian will be standing down from the chair and staying on the board. Mick will be taking the chair in his new role as AFC chair after this AGM. So I just wanted to put on record my personal, the Dons Trust boards and Dons Trust members, thanks to Ian for all the hard work that he's put in as PLC chair, as well as all the other things that you have done, as being on the Dons Trust board, being a club sponsor, being a very clear supporter in the very early days, as well as all of that. So thank you very much, Ian. We look forward to continuing with you on the PLC board in future. That closes this year's Dons Trust annual meeting of members. Thank you everybody online and in the room, and to everybody who put in their proxy votes as well. We will announce the formal result of the votes as soon as we possibly can. I think that everyone could draw their own conclusions about the likelihood of those results. But again, thanks very much. Do stay if you'd like to. Do grab another drink if you'd like to, and I'll invite Ian to open the PLC AGM. Thank you.